Stamp duty is a crucial aspect of legal documentation, especially in property transactions. It serves as a revenue source for the government. More importantly, it ensures the legality and enforceability of agreements. When legal disputes arise, the issue of stamp duty often takes center stage, determining the admissibility of documents as evidence. Insufficiently stamped agreements can be deemed inadmissible, significantly impacting the outcome of a case. Proper stamp duty compliance is not merely a formality, it is a fundamental legal requirement. It safeguards the interests of all parties involved. Non-compliance can have severe consequences, rendering agreements unenforceable and creating legal hurdles. Therefore, understanding the nuances of stamp duty laws is paramount. This is especially true for legal practitioners dealing with property disputes and agreements. It is essential to guide clients appropriately and ensure that all legal documents are correctly stamped to avoid potential pitfalls. Section 35 of the Indian Stamp Act, 1899, plays a pivotal role in determining the legal validity of insufficiently stamped instruments. This section states that no instrument chargeable with duty shall be admitted in evidence by any person having by law or consent of parties authority to receive evidence. This is, unless such instrument is duly stamped. The implications of Section 35 are significant. It essentially renders any instrument, agreement, deed, etc. inadmissible as evidence in a court of law if it lacks proper stamping. This can be detrimental to parties relying on such instruments to prove their case. However, Section 35 does provide for certain exceptions. Instruments not chargeable with duty or those exempted from duty are not affected. Additionally, instruments chargeable with a duty of a different description but produced in evidence can be admitted on payment of the proper duty and penalty. Sections 36, 40 and 42 of the Indian Stamp Act further elaborate on the admissibility of instruments in legal proceedings. Section 36 empowers the collector to impound insufficiently stamped instruments. This happens when the instrument is produced before a person authorized to receive evidence. Section 40 deals with the impounding of instruments by civil courts. If the court is convinced that an instrument has not been duly stamped, it can impound the instrument. The court then sends it to the collector for adjudication. Section 42 outlines the procedure for the collector to assess and determine the duty and penalty payable on insufficiently stamped instruments. It also provides for the collector to certify the instrument as duly stamped upon payment of the required amount. Section 4. Vidyut Sarkar vs. Kanchilal Pal, a landmark case. The case of Vidyut Sarkar vs. Kanchilal Pal, decided by the Indian Supreme Court, holds immense significance in understanding the implications of insufficient stamp duty on sale agreements. The case revolved around a dispute over a sale agreement of immovable property. The plaintiff, Vidyut Sarkar, filed a suit for specific performance of the agreement. The defendant, Kanchilal Pal, contested the suit. One of the key arguments raised by the defendant was that the sale agreement was inadmissible in evidence due to insufficient stamping. The case went through various levels of litigation, from the trial court to the High Court, before ultimately reaching the Supreme Court. Section 5. The journey of the case, from trial court to Supreme Court. The trial court, after examining the evidence and arguments, ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The court held that the sale agreement was admissible in evidence, despite the insufficient stamp duty. The defendant then appealed this decision to the High Court. The High Court, however, overturned the trial court's judgment. The High Court emphasized the mandatory nature of Section 35 of the Indian Stamp Act. It held that the insufficiently stamped sale agreement was inadmissible as evidence. The plaintiff then appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court upheld the High Court's decision. They reiterated the importance of stamp duty compliance and the consequences of non-compliance. Section 6. Implications and takeaways for legal practitioners. The Supreme Court's ruling in Vidyut Sarkar versus Kanchalal Pal has significant implications for legal practitioners and those involved in property transactions. The case highlights the strict interpretation and application of stamp duty laws by courts. Firstly, it emphasizes the importance of diligence and adherence to stamp duty regulations during property transactions and the drafting of agreements. Failure to comply can have severe consequences, rendering agreements unenforceable. Secondly, the ruling underscores the need for legal practitioners to be well versed in stamp duty laws. They must be able to guide their clients effectively. This includes ensuring that all legal documents are correctly stamped to avoid potential disputes and legal hurdles. In conclusion, the Vidyut Sarkar versus Kanchalal Pal case serves as a stark reminder of the significance of stamp duty compliance in India. It highlights the potential consequences of non-compliance and the importance of seeking expert legal advice to navigate the complexities of stamp duty regulations.